Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dancers Podcast. Today, I have a really amazing person here with me. His name is Guy Shomroni, and I'm super excited to have him on the podcast. So, Guy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Maya. My name is Guy, and I'm a dance artist, dancer, teacher, and a choreographer. I spent most of my career in Batsheva Dance Company. Nowadays, I'm doing freelance work, both choreographing my own work in collaboration with others or by myself. And I'm assistant to Ohad Naharin, teaching his choreography or restaging it with dance companies in Israel and abroad. And yes, this is the essence. And of course, there is more.
So, Guy, for people that don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about your journey into dance?
Shortly, my journey started not too young, like many professional dancers do. I started looking for my path into dance early, but I couldn't really find it until I was about 15 or so. I did other physical things like theater in school and circus afternoon and all kinds of different supporting things and things that were kind of around without actually getting into dance. In school, my movement teacher in the acting department had a studio in my hometown, and after a few classes together in 10th grade, she invited me to her studio to take classes. I happily answered and came and fell in love and really was into it. Shortly after, she sent me to my first professional audition, and I got into that. That was a Suzanne Dalal production in Tel Aviv, where it was a recurring project to promote male dancers and choreographers, set by the late Yair Vardi. And in this production, I've really encountered what professional dancing really is, and that happened between year 10 and 11 in school in the summer. I came back to study in my hometown year 11. That was very, very difficult for me because my mindset was already in the professional dance world. And
Wait, how old were you?
I was 16.
16?
16, yes. And that was a very meaningful experience for me. Doing my first professional project, I immediately knew that this is what I wanted to do. And so going back to school felt very regressive, very like going back to where I had to be a student again, and not even a dance student, just like a normal student. That was hard because I was already in Tel Aviv, taking my first steps in the professional world, making friends, sort of opening to this new world, sensing this addictive sense of independence that really I think I needed at a time. And so year 11 was extremely hard, but during that project, my colleagues already told me, hey, perhaps you'd like to audition to Ensemble Batsheva. We think that they might like you there. And so I started building up towards that. I auditioned also elsewhere to make sure that I have something. And the audition came, and I luckily got in. And instead of the last year of school, I did my first year at Ensemble Batsheva.
Wow, that I didn't know.
Yeah. So
and how did your family react to it? Were they supportive of it?
Yes, they were extremely supportive, actually. My mother and grandmother both came from dancing backgrounds, and both changed their path in their career to pursue a more therapeutic angle of this world. first with dancing, my grandma actually went for music therapy and my mother for dance therapy, and from then they kept branching out to other things, but from their point of view I had experienced something that they really wanted to experience. My mother was actually the first or second year of the Gaton Maspa, the Sadna in Gaton.
The training program.
The training program originated by Judith Arnon, and it was a very strong experience for her. So again, my mother was already a foot deep into the dance world, and when I got into it, it was something that they were very, very happy to support. My dad was not so much from that background, but he was extremely supportive, and so I feel very lucky that I got, throughout my career, very strong support from my family.
I have to ask you, like, as a teenager, a boy who is dancing, how did you feel back then? Like, was it just natural for you, or did you also deal with like gender kind of oriented thoughts?
I definitely did deal with different thoughts about it, but mostly prior to actually taking the leap and going for dancing. I think, as I mentioned, I wanted to dance earlier on and was looking for whereabout I could do it. But having growing up in a very macho-oriented society with its own imperatives of how men should carry themselves through this world and how they should behave, I was reluctant to really go for this idea, and felt maybe the social pressure to try to find alternative path to it. But my attraction to it was very strong. So eventually I did find my way. I remember myself as like very young calling a different dance teacher who had her own studio where I grew up, and I asked her, what kind of dance do you teach? What kind of classes do you have? But I was very, very young. I think probably in primary school at some point. But I talked with her, and she was very nice. But it wasn't enough for me to really take the leap and go for it. I think later on, a little bit more towards junior high and high school, that I started accumulating more positive experiences that had to do with different performative things, like the circus group that I was part of, theater department, and other little bits and things that I've experienced that sort of led me to feel, yeah, it's okay for guys to do it too. I don't have to play by the rules or live my life the way I think society wants me to. And I'm saying I think because I didn't really know what people wanted me. Nobody expressed these ideas as much as I extrapolated them from what I saw around me. But I was attracted to dancing, to performing, to the performing experience. And the more I got into it, the more I understood that what attracts me is movement in its pure form, not necessarily acting or circus work per se, as much as the raw experience of dancing, of expressing yourself with your body, and that the entire world behind this thing, because there is a world. It's not just the concept of, coming in and learning movement, but learning how to sharpen this tool, how to sharpen your own world of fantasy, or your own set of preferences of what you like and don't like. And yeah, that's kind of kickstarted my journey towards dance. Once I found dance, I was totally into it and immersed by it and just wanted more and more. And quite early on, I identified Batcheva's work and Ohad's work as the work that could potentially help me extract the most out of myself and reach what I've wanted to do and who I wanted to become, which I felt had a connection not just with dance training and dance history, but also an aspect of human quality that I liked about other things that I did before, like acting and circus, and what I liked about watching Batsheva performances, where I found that human quality was the most pronounced. And it drew me in because I didn't really have a strong dance training before. I danced a little bit. I did some classes in that studio for about half a year before I went to the audition of the first project that I did, and then kept dancing. And in the project, I did my first ballet class, so ballet was not part of my vocabulary.
How did you feel about it, that you didn't come from technique?
Yeah, I definitely felt a big gap between where I was and where I wanted to be, and between wanting to pursue this career and pursue dancing, and the challenges of having to compete with very skillful dancers who already are very trained. And I definitely felt there was a gap to bridge, to overcome, and to understand if I can even do this. I wasn't 100% sure that I would be able to, but I knew that I had something to contribute and the ability to learn fast and progress fast with things that I'm passionate about. And so when they agreed, or they received me into Ensemble Batsheva, for example, I knew that I was set on the right path, because I knew that the experience of dancing in Ensemble Batsheva would provide a very strong, powerful learning experience that I needed to first bridge those gaps and then further extract more from my capabilities and learn more and become who I wanted to become professionally.
I wonder, because you said that you were very young when you got into the company, the ensemble, and that you had a lot to learn. So I'm wondering, once you got there were all these talented people around you. Everyone is like a crazy dancer. How did you feel about that? Like when you had the gap?
Yeah, on one hand, I knew it was the place for me to be. And on the other hand, I felt that I'm in a sort of disadvantage, and I need to constantly, as I said, bridge the gap. I have to catch up with the people around me. And I think that made something that I think is important for anyone, but it made it very clear for me, and almost a survival thing that I had to do. Because I think if you're coming with a lot of training, with a lot of talent, you can make it with everything you have. But if there's all these, issues and gaps that you feel that you need to overcome, then you look outwards, because the training doesn't live inwards. You look out to see what does other people do that you like, or that works for them in their own relationship with the artistic crew or with the choreographer, that you could learn from, and trying to develop enough awareness to understand where exactly those gaps live within your proposition. What I brought, I knew that I had things that made me maybe a good choice for them to bring me. Like I brought creativity and talent and specific things, but there's other things for sure that I know that I lack or I need to work on, and trying to map it for myself helped me to address them. And for the first year, I tried as much as I can to look out and to try to develop my eye in a way. I can say it now. Back then I didn't know what I was doing that much, but I can say from looking back that in order even to understand what I'm lacking and what other people has that is working for them, I had to develop my eye to catch those things, to identify them, to see, oh wow, that is beautiful, or wow, this person is very strong on their legs, and this really makes that moment works, and I need to figure out how I can do that, invest in it in the classes, in the morning classes, or that person has this beautiful delicacy or beautiful way of working with their hands and fingers that I feel like I could learn from. So all these insights came from observation, and the more I observed, the more I felt like, oh, I need to observe more. I need to dedicate that time that I'm not dancing to look at other people and be active and independent in my improvement, in my process, because I think that's one of the biggest things about dancing professionally. When you are in a school or training program, often you have someone who guides you, tells you areas you need to improve. You're being escorted hand in hand in the path, in the journey of the things that you need to learn. And a lot of the time when you reach the professional environment, because there's so many aspects, so many things to take care of, they only work with you when something is wrong, when you need to correct something, which is great and it's good, but as dancers we often feel like we lack guidance, right? We lack feedback, especially in the professional environment. And I feel that it is imperative to become your own rehearsal director, not as a replacement to the existing rehearsal director, but to speed up your own learning process, to make it interesting for yourself, to make day-to-day choices that help you improve. You have to look out and watch people and derive insights from observation. Tune your eye to understand the aesthetics of the place that you are in, the aesthetics of the creator that is maybe creating in the place that you are in, or the artistic director, and slowly understand how can you be better, maybe for them, for yourself as well. But since you are a performance artist and what you do is interpretation, so knowing that source is so important, so you can become a better interpreter of their work. So I feel that I had to do a lot with my experience because I didn't have the proper training before. I sort of came tabula rasa, like open sheet into professional dancing without too much habits of school. I think it allowed me to discover what I actually needed to do without having to go through more traditional things or things that were given to me from teachers or from training. It was more like, okay, I need to bridge those gaps. How do I do it? I'm just going to look at those people dancing until I identify and understand exactly why things they do work and how I can reproduce them. This is one thing. And another thing, which I feel like is equally important, if not even more important, is the network that you have as a dancer internally inside the frame that you're working, the project, the company, whatever. If you can connect with people that you can help each other. I feel in my experience, I was almost adopted by a person who became my best friend, and was 3 years older than me as well, came from a professional training program and had way more knowledge about what is needed to be done and how to tackle different challenges. Just gave me so much, especially in the beginning. And when I became better and better, I also tried to do the same and make the conversation between us more of a dialogue and a conversation rather than just him schooling me and taking care of me and making sure I won't do too many mistakes. Or it was really taking care of me and helping me, because I arrived clueless 17-year-old, so far from understanding how to be professional in every aspect of the word, in the studio and outside of the studio. So I was lucky. So this idea of connecting to people and forming a network where you can use each other to speed up your learning process, to bridge any gaps if you feel that there are, I feel that worked for me very, very well. That goes hand in hand in the need to have a dialogue with yourself actively, to what I said, to be your own rehearsal director, not to wait for anyone to come and guide you or tell you where to go, but to become active in your own betterment and progress.
I agree with everything you said, and I feel like the most important thing for us as performers in any frame we are in is to take responsibility for our experience. And I also liked what you said about networking and finding connection, especially in environments where you feel like you don't have the feedback from the rehearsal director or from the company manager. It's so important that you have someone there to reflect you when you need it. Mm-hmm. Because what you described here is being very open and curious to learn. You basically reframed what most dancers are doing, that they compare themselves to other people and they let this comparison take them down. And you actually took it and used it in order to grow. You were very smart about it, mapping what you already have, mapping where's the gap, and looking outside on how you can bridge this gap. And I think this is such an important thing that every dancer can implement into their journey. And I want to ask you, so you started bridging the gap and you later made it to the main company of Batsheva. How was your experience dancing in the company?
Wow, it was an incredible experience. Of course, those two experiences are very different. I think in the young company, there is still a great deal of competition, where it has to do with graduating from the young company to the main company. It's almost like a never-ending audition where you have to prove yourself every day. You have to show up to almost every bit, every idea, every performance, every rehearsal. You have to show up with everything you have and constantly prove yourself in a way, and at the same time try to brush off any competitiveness that hinders your ability to perform well. Anything that drags you down, you have to brush it very actively, because there's always something, there's always a part that you'd like to do, there's always a piece that you'd like to perform, a tour that you would want to go to, and you can't do everything all the time. And so there is always an underlying sense of competition. And when you go to the company, this exists, but not in such a pronounced way. And it becomes easier to suppress the bad things about feeling that you are in a competition. And you know that there are aspects of being in a competition there, but they stop to dictate a lot about your decision-making process. It's easier to take care of yourself, I feel, when you know that you have a place. And not always you'll do everything that you want to do, and maybe you're very motivated and aspiring to do a lot, to reach further, to develop yourself as an artist. But also, I guess it's important to derive a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction, not just from attending to your goals and succeeding them, but also inside your day-to-day company life, things that you have to do. And that's a process that I feel had already started when I was in the young company. For example, trying to enjoy the performances no matter what, even if I am overworked and having a very hard week or facing other challenges that are outside of the studio, the ability to let them linger at the door of the theater and go and do your thing and try to do it to the best way, and trying to extract as much enjoyment from the performances could actually even help me with other things that I was dealing with, and became easier and easier as I went on in my process. And so this kind of transferred from the young company to the main company with me, and I can wholeheartedly say that I enjoyed almost every performance that I did. I can't recall a performance that I truly didn't enjoy or was suffering. I think even if it was not exactly a performance that I was completely artistically aligned with, for example, I didn't love, it was still important for me to make it a point to enjoy the performative act, so I can again be the most that I can for that performance, for the creator. I think it really engulfed the true meaning of what it is to be professional. Of course, it is about showing up, being on time, being warm, being all of these things that we know it is about being professional, but more than everything, to enjoy the performance. And again, it came from the young into the main company, and I felt like I could go deeper into it. And
I want to ask you something, actually. Do you feel like did you feel like you enjoyed the time in the studio as much as you enjoyed performing on stage?
Not always. Not always. And I think it's very normal. I think studio time has to be divided according to the interest of the piece, the choreographer, and the rehearsal directors take care of that to prioritize doing what is needed for the piece. And that's not always what us as dancers need to focus on. And a lot of the time you feel that the time management aspect of rehearsals is not catered to your needs or preferences, but it's very, very normal. It's just not always producing the best outcome for you as a dancer. You would like maybe to spend time on something else. Maybe you would like to go home and rest and use the time. You're feeling overworked. You think it would be great if you'd skip the rehearsal, but there's actually a very good reason to stay from the rehearsal director or choreographer's point of view, and you have to align with that. And often you find yourself in boring situations or situations that feel redundant. They're not needed as far as you're concerned, but actually if you take a step out of yourself and look at the big picture, you realize that it is very needed. Often is even more when you become more senior, more experienced, and other people are relying on you. There are more and more of these moments where you have to show up for someone else. You have to be there even though you know everything, even though you have choreography qualities, you can snap into them and produce them very quickly. There are other people who may have joined the group in recent years. Maybe they're new, maybe they're not as experienced, and you need to be there so they can rehearse to the extent of what they need in order to catch up with everyone. And it's important to understand and sometimes take it in proportion. Yeah, not all rehearsals are fun and feel useful, but they're part of what we have to do. So
yeah, it leads me to, because you started mentioning like the outside life, everything that happens outside the company, and how do you balance between your personal life, that sometimes it almost feel like your personal life are also company life when you're working in this kind of intensity. So how do you let the things, those thoughts, emotions linger at the door, as you said?
Well, I'd start by saying that I think it's very normal for the beginning of your time in a place to feel that you are consumed by the company, by the project, by what you have to do there. And so you don't really have much time for other things. I think it's very normal for the beginning because, I think it's kind of good to get fully immersed, almost obsessed with the things you need to do, with creating momentum for yourself in your learning process, so you can be quick to catch up if you need to, so you can be efficient in this process. But once you're there and you're already running and things are happening, suddenly you feel that perhaps more leisure time opens and you can do other things. And I feel it's so important to have that other thing or things that you practice and that you can pour energy that you have received or accumulated within you in the frame of the dance work that you do in the company, in the project, and that you can discharge of them into that other thing and exchange them with energy and information and stimulation from those things that are not dance, and come back to your dancing professional environment feeling refreshed, feeling ready to give everything because you had that balance, pouring and discharging what you received in the other activity that you were doing, the other interests that you have into your dancing, that can inform the dancing in a very interesting way and make it more rich, more complex, more balanced, And then, the idea of leaving something at the door has to do with, I think, more when your personal life can become a barrier between you and progress and wanting to become better, to even just do your job. Sometimes things at life are so bad that you feel that it makes it very difficult for you to concentrate, to think about what you actually need to do. The gravitational force of real life drama can be so strong that you just find yourself in rehearsal unable to give yourself and be at your best because of those things that pull you. And it's a skill, I think. It has to do a lot with your inner dialogue that you have with yourself and how you practice this idea of understanding that those problems that you have are not going anywhere, and you have two choices basically. You either allow them to hinder your performance in the studio or performance or wherever you are, and they take away from you, and that's a horrible feeling for me, at least, to feel that I allow it. I want to be able to experience a wide spectrum of emotions and not to disengage from things that happen in my life. I don't want to ignore them, but in the same time I don't want them to disturb my passion, what I love to do. I don't want people to feel like, oh my God, he's being haunted by things that really take away from his ability to be here. And so with time, I think I developed the more and more the ability to let things rest a little before rushing to deal with them, to take care of them. I can't say I can do it 100%, forget about something. It's always going to be a process, always going to be a bit of a struggle, but I know that it's possible to allow things to rest while I focus and do what I want to do, and that I can come back afterwards to my problems, to whatever is there that is waiting for me, and I can then give them my full attention and try to resolve them in the best way I can without having them conflicting with what I need to do as a professional dancer.
I totally agree. And it's something I also tell the people I work with all the time, that it's always a matter of priorities. And when you go in the studio, you want to put it in the first priority. So your problems and the thoughts are going down the stairs for this amount of time, but then you can switch it back.
Totally.
I do want to ask you, when did you feel like you found your like artistic voice? Also, you started creating at some point.
So my first creation actually happened in my second year in the ensemble. The first year we had Bacheva dancers create. I wanted to see what it's all about and give it a moment. I've just entered, so I felt that I needed more time to absorb. But then, since my second year in the ensemble, I've been creating in this format of Bacheva dancers create almost every time that it was. So for me, it was a really good practice to discover my artistic voice. And it's hard for me to relate to the idea of having an artistic voice as a solidified, autonomous thing that is, you discover it and it's there. I think about it more as a collection of ideas and preferences and aesthetic preferences and views and taste preferences, like music that you like, And I think that every experience influences you either to be inspired by something, to try to wish to understand how what you experience can influence your own artistic say, or on the contrary, things that you experience and you're like, that's not something I want to get into, or something that you experience that deters you from a specific aesthetic idea or conceptual idea. And so you're when you go into creation, you constantly, I feel, going through this process of selection of things that you want to collect versus things that you experience but you discard. You maybe mark for yourself in your brain, like, that's not interesting for me, I don't want to go there. And so in a way, I felt that once I created my first piece, or in the process of making it, I've already discovered my artistic voice already in one way, because I was creating. And even though my own ideas maybe were not extremely developed or informed, they were mine. I made them my own. And since then, it was about the practice of fortifying them with more interesting things, making them more juicy and meaty and stimulating in a good way for me, to stay on my toes, to stay creative, to stay curious. And then I've never actually felt like I was looking for an artistic voice and found it, as much as it started as a practice and maintained as a practice in what I do. I, for a long time, did both, having to be an interpreter of someone else's work, of multiple people's work, and in the same time having to think, okay, now I have to create my own thing, what do I want to do? And when you are in such an intense environment where you take a lot from the choreographers you work with, or at least you practice their things on a daily basis in a very intense schedule with a lot of new experiences, and or whatever is new for you, you experience a lot of new things working with these choreographers. I feel that you're being fed a lot, and that often the moment that you come to create is also a moment to in a way vomit all these things that you were fed back out, or try to understand what kind of movement, what kind of shifts they made, these ideas, when they hit you. So when you create, you don't try to reproduce what you experience, but you create something that is now informed by all your experiences and still carries your unique voice. I actually never felt like I was in struggle to differentiate my voice and market it as unique. I never felt the need to invest time and strive towards being uniquely different than others. I think mostly because I felt that whatever I choose to do, unless I'm copying completely someone's work, which I was never interested to do, but it doesn't matter what I bring, it's going to be my thing. It's going to be my own ideas. And I love to do works in collaboration. Pretty early on, I think around 2007, maybe it was my sixth work or so in Bacheva Dancer Create, I've decided to collaborate with Yaniv, who became my long-time collaborator. he's also the one to adopt me, actually, from earlier in our conversation, and help me and take care. And of course, we became very, very close friends. And since starting to collaborate on works together, I felt it was one of the best ways for me to grow as a creator. Having to draw a very clear line between satisfying your urges as a creator or as a person, your the things that your pet peeves and things that you are interested in, versus having to serve the creation, the piece that you are doing. And I feel that in the collaborative work, when you have to share the position of a choreographer with someone else, it helps you to better balance these things. Because of course there are things that are interesting for you and that stem from your preferences and your creativity, imagination, and processes that you've experienced. But also, when creating, the more you have, the more you put out there, the more you have to consider what is already there and use it as a reference to continue and draw, not just from your imagination, right? Not just from your creativity, but also from what is already part of reality, not just envision reality. And maybe you have great ideas, but when they meet reality, there will always be gaps. Because when ideas live in your mind, they take the shape and form of where you want to take them. But when they meet reality and other people's abilities, bodies, constraints, there are limitations that influence the real course of things. And then when you go back into creation, you already have some bits out there that you've made for the creation. You have to look at them and say, okay, so where can this go? And how can I make this better? And can I bridge the gap between what I initially imagined to what there is now, and the need to be articulate and accurate with your words and with how you mediate your ideas to people becomes even more a necessity when you're in a collaborative process, because you are supposed to find a compromise between you and another person, and to find this compromise you are talking and discussing, presenting ideas, scrapping ideas, convincing each other why your ideas could work or why they could be interesting. And in order to do that, you need to become articulate. You need to understand how to express your ideas. And I feel it's such an important process for creators, because no matter what the situation is, unless you are making a solo only for yourself, you're going to be working with other people. And the quality of your work is usually doesn't depend solely on your brilliant ideas, as much as also it depends on your ability to explain them and articulate them for the dancers, not just in a way maybe that they'll understand them, but in a way that will help them to execute them from the point of view of a dancer. What can be stimulating for them, what could be interesting for them, what could enrich their performative experience, what can you give them to have this kind of process inside themselves that not just make them understand, but make them an active contributor to the idea, that they can feel also that they have room to maneuver inside the idea and to pour themselves in and that they are stimulated and interested and curious about the development of this idea. So, yeah, in
It's
general.
actually, it throws me to the fact that you've been a rehearsal director and you've worked with the dancers and you learn the skill of how to get more juice of each dancer,
Mm.
how to how to say with words the potential that you see in each person in front of you. And this is also something that you practice as a teacher when you want to give people and you know you have to use the right words in order to get them to the place you want them to get.
Yes. Yes, I think it's a complex thing, but I definitely think about one thing which for me is the basic of all of it and is the most important cue, I think, for these kind of jobs. As a rehearsal director, as a creator, I think number one most important ability to have and practice is practice daily with every interaction that you have with people is whatever you're going to say, put yourself on the other side as that person, as their dance. If you're talking to a dancer, put yourself there as a dancer and listen to what you're about to say from that point of view and think how it would make you feel. Would it help you and get you closer to your goals? I think there's, before being able to reach someone and give them what they need, there's already so many traps that could lead to the bad type of friction that could happen in all professions where people work together and not just sitting in front of a computer. You know, working with people, there's a lot of room for misinterpretation and friction and ego, and you need to understand how to clean all of these out so that your message is well received and is capsulated in a way that is digestible and the person can actually use it and benefit from it. And sometimes as a rehearsal director you discover that it's sometimes better to not say anything at all than saying. Assessing the person that you're working with, understanding what could help them, understanding their capacity and ability to receive and to use what you want to give them, understand the right timing for it. It's also very important. For example, I am not so much into the idea of sitting with the dancers after the show and talking about the show. I think the sense of achievement and relief and kind of feeling that you get after climbing a mountain, it's so important to give it its time and its space to experience it, to experience the relief of having to do something that perhaps is physically challenging and of course very rewarding as well, and to rest in this place a little bit. So like the post-show ritual, I think, should not include feedback on the performance. I think this should go for a rehearsal session after.
But you know, it's really interesting for me because I remember as a dancer in the beginning of my career that I really seeked that feedback right after the show. I wasn't expecting like the full length feedback with what I have to do exactly, but I was craving this attention, this, especially when you're at the beginning and you're not sure about your abilities and about how you perform, how you deliver. And I remember not getting it and getting very confused. And actually, right now, when you say this kind of things in a like from a point of view of a rehearsal director, it does make a lot of sense for me. So I think it's worth noting for the people who listen to this and are seeking the validation right after the show that maybe sometimes You just got to go home and give it some space, not immediately give it a grade, give it a number.
Absolutely. And I think that it's important to realize, and I think many people realize it at different points of time, but you realize that this validation that you are seeking often has to do more with our need for validation and less with the specificities of that specific performance and whether you did well on a specific movement or a specific section or something, let's say, technical that you need in order to continue and do what you need to do. It's more of it's derivative from the need to be guided, to get a positive feedback from the outside. It gives you the stamp that you're on the right direction, doing the right thing. And then the question is whether even a constructive criticism presented in this moment, would it be effective? And I think not, because you don't really have a time to work on it. It's not the time and the space. It's not a rehearsal. It's not like, okay, this didn't work, let's work on it for a moment. It's more like, if you say it, this doesn't work, you just carry that feeling that something didn't work. And if we now steer away from the impossible strive to be perfect, we have to accept that every performance that we do, there's going to be something. There's going to be something that didn't work, something that could be better. There's something that Ohad was always saying, that there's always room for more. And I think to fully embrace it, you need to understand and also practice the idea that it's not really about arriving to any place, not a place of perfection, not a place of sublime, it's more about the process and the making peace with the idea that part of the process is working on things, because there's always something to work on. And if you can make peace with that, that's great. You can really enjoy it. And then you need to think, when is the best time to do that? Because again, after the show, maybe you want to feel good and you want to get this validation. But then, at least for me, I understood quite early on that because it's an inherent need that I have to feel good, to feel accomplished, I can, we are used to outsourcing it to the people we work with, but it's not dependent on that. I could give myself the validation that I sensed that I needed in a way. And furthermore, we could, as dancers, give it to each other. And that's exactly what we did. And sometimes to the point of exaggeration and humor. We can come out of a show and we're like, wow, you were so good. And telling to my friend, you were amazing, this solo, this thing, this improv, where did you bring it from? All these things. You're like, it's not just, we support each other. No, it's really like part of the process. And this kind of feedbacking each other and giving validation to each other is such an important part of taking agency on these needs. You have a need for validation, it's so normal, it's human. Great, take agency and find your own means of taking care of it. You with yourself in your own dialogue, you with the other people, give it to the other people. For me, it's really the meaning of support. And it helps you also to detach your professional relationship with the people who are supposed to do their job and take care of the artistic quality of a show, like your choreographer, your rehearsal directors, and to detach this need from them. Because if you constantly present your need and put it out there, it's not something that they can always answer to, so you're setting yourself for disappointment. in a big percentage of the time. You're not going to get what you want. And also setting yourself for dependency. If you can produce it by yourself and give yourself, you and yourself, or you and your peers in your group, if you can give each other this sense of validation and answer the needs for that, then I think it's very powerful. It's very independent, and you can leave your artistic relationships that you have with your choreographer and rehearsal directors clean from that, so other things can transfer, not your expectation of their validation and not them thinking that they need to answer anything. You can keep it professional in terms of, okay, they need to do their job. You understand that, and you also understand their job requirements is not to take care of you in any given moment and constantly feed you with feedback and guidance, but more like they have a job to attend to every dancer in the project or in the company. They have a lot of different things they have to do, and in a way staying independent and on top of your own needs and your development, you are becoming a very self-sufficient and independent dancer.
And more resilient also, I think.
We're resilient as well, yes, because you don't feel that your sense of self and self-worth is dependent on external feedback. You can give it to yourself, and you can also take a moment with yourself and really reflect and think, okay, there are a couple of things I could definitely work on. I don't need to wait for them to tell me. I know that this moment was not so accurate, and the other moment I could work it. And I need to talk with my friend about our duet. There's something there. We need to figure it out, and I think there's something really nice about becoming like that you carry into whatever else that you do inside the dance world. If you become a choreographer, if you become a rehearsal director, those skills are still going to serve you on anything else. And it's a very powerful feeling to feel independent and free of the need to stabilize your own self-worth from external points. No, you know what you are, you know what you give. It doesn't put you in a place of like, well, everything that someone tells me can either destroy me or put me on a pedestal and make me feel really great. If you don't have the need of that because you take care of it yourself, then you're also not in a risk that everything someone would tell you could destabilize you or collapse your foundations. You can just rely on what you are. And of course, it takes time to transition, especially if you have these ideas ingrained in you as habits that you just all the time, you're like out. And slowly taking more and more agency to doing your own thing, to feedbacking yourself, to being active in helping your friends, just makes you slowly better and better in that. And so this slow transfer of power or transfer of responsibilities that you take upon yourself, I feel is a very healthy process to experience as a dancer. It's not like I'm waiting for them to give me more responsibilities. I want to develop to be more than a dancer. Let me be a rehearsal. It's like you already do it as a dancer. You already take upon yourself whatever you feel that you can, and that taps into so many things that you need. You need to develop further. Do it. Don't wait for someone to tell you how to do it. I think it's one of the biggest things, the biggest transitions that people experience in the dance world. In the school, they tell you exactly what to do all the time, and you feel it's a given because you're clueless. You arrived. You're learning from everyone, from everything, and you develop these habits to just like be there with an open mouth and eat whatever people feed you. And transitioning into companies where sometimes this is the exact opposite. You have to be so independent if you want to progress. If you wait, nothing will come. You're like eating scrapes from leftovers from information. One of the best practices that I had as means to catch up with the gap that I previously mentioned and to try to become more independent and be more on top of it for myself was a very simple thing that I can recommend, especially for people who are already, not just for people who are already working in companies and projects, but I think it's applicable as well when you're in school. So I was listening to corrections and suggestions to everybody and was identifying and trying to understand, okay, if I was there, how would I apply it? Why was this person giving this suggestion? And listening and trying to understand these things already switched my perspective from passive to active. Instead of like doing my thing, then sitting, waiting for things to come, I was always eyes peeled outside, looking, oh, how he's talking to this person, what is he saying, what is he suggesting, what can I learn from it? All these things was a tool for me to go faster. When I needed, I felt like, oh, I need to go faster, what can I do? That my solution was just to listen as much as I can, practice in my imagination, applying information and adjusting myself, even if I was not actually the person to dance. So this, I think, pretty big for me.
It leads me to something that I wanted to ask you. So you've worked with so many dancers. Is there something that you notice that holds people back?
It's hard to generalize about all the people that I've met because I think people who were held back each had their own reasons. But I think it is important for a person who stands in front of artists and is interested to help them to try to understand what is holding these people back, because it could be helpful to helping them achieve specific things that you want to give, go beyond. Yeah, I think we often think about, failure or not achieving our goals and attribute the reason of not achieving goals or facing challenges to one specific thing, or I think we would want it to be one solvable thing that if we were to address it, then things magically would flow much more. Sometimes it could be that, but often I think it's a collection of things. In the same way that being a dancer is a collection of skills, it's not one thing. And they are not just physical skills. They could be mental skills. And what holding one person back could be a combination of a few things. And it also very much goal or task dependent. Depending on your goal, there might be something that hinders your progress on your journey to get there. But there are often multiple goals, multiple things you want to achieve. It's good to analyze it and dissect it and to realize, okay, what's my goal here? And once this is clear for you, it's already a little clearer to think, okay, what's stopping me from getting there? What is blocking my progress? Um, yeah, for example, people who are really, really passionate about dance and want to take it as a professional career, but don't have the extensive training, like me, that I didn't have extensive training before starting to dance professionally, often face this challenge of how to catch up, how to become professional without having years of training in ballet, in other different forms, and what could be helpful for those people is different from what other people is held back by. For example, people who actually experienced very extensive training process in their lives in, let's say, a more traditional training like ballet, and are actually interested in tapping into the more contemporary world, are facing different challenges because perhaps they need to do more unlearning or changing different habits that influence their decision-making process a lot. This influences their perception of aesthetics a lot, and they need to adjust in their own way, unlike the people who don't have training at all and maybe wish to strengthen in these areas. So again, it has to do a lot with what you did until that moment, and as well what's the goal in front of you, what are you trying to do. Again, thinking about the dance world as being multifaceted and full of different options of what you could do. Yeah, I think it really depends on so many factors. That's why it's difficult to pinpoint one thing and to say always people are being held back by this issue. If it was only one thing, would probably be very solvable. Maybe with one Instagram reel you could solve the whole issue and help people without training, without much, just highlighting this thing. But since it's a very complex collection of skills and goals of which you would like to apply these skills at, the solution is also complex as well. It's not automatic or ready-made, formulated solution. It has to be personalized and fitting to each one's own challenges.
Yeah, I loved how you described this, and I think a lot of what you said is about having a mindset that supports you, because it can be a technical gap, but technical gap also has to do with your mindset. So once you untangle your thoughts, the stories you have in your head, the beliefs that you hold, you can actually understand how to untangle from this thing that is holding you back. And I want to ask you a question from the audience. The crowd wanted to ask. Mm-hmm. How do you choose dancers in auditions?
Great question. I'd start by saying already I think it's very different for each person. If you would ask other people who audition, I think each person would have a different answer, right? Because each person or each choreographer or each person that is part of an artistic team would have different priorities of what they are looking for, what's more important for them. For me, I think one of the most important things that I would look for in a dancer is adaptability and their ability to shift and change and be able to match ideas that are presented while also be able to be creative and produce their own ideas, be able to shift between different qualities and sort of presenting different colors within them. These things, this idea of diversity is important because you can only have a certain amount of dancers in a company, and if you think about it as almost tools in a toolbox, each tool has different purposes and different things that this tool could do. In the same way, each person has the things that they are great at, the things that they can do, the things that they can, Then having a person that is very skillful and has the ability to shift quickly between different qualities, different colors and ideas, between executing very well a choreography while taking care of fine detail, to improvisation that really portrays their imagination and their capabilities. There's already a very big range of possibilities. So, for example, sometimes I see people that are obviously very, very talented, but they discover a quality or a color that they think fits them and they think makes them look good, and they sort of shelter in this quality. And in those cases, it's very hard to take the leap and trust that they are able to go beyond that, because when you see so much of the same idea and the same thing, I don't want to use the phrase one-trick pony, but let's go deeper into the psychology behind that. Behind that, there might be a fear from failure, that if you go and deviate outside of that path that you feel so confident in, you might not be able to show yourself at your best, or you might show yourself in a vulnerable position of doing something that is not what you conceive as your best, or the best thing that you can produce. But as someone who auditions people, I'm actually interested to see how adaptable the people are and how they do when they're presented with things that are not in their element, and how can they make it their own, and what kind of solutions they find to actually succeed in that. And part of the not declared purposes of auditions is to place the person that comes to audition in somewhere where they're perhaps not fully convenient, they're not fully comfortable, they're not maybe in their element, and you do so by presenting them material that they haven't learned, or tasks that you think maybe they haven't practiced, or a combination of things that you feel could extract something interesting and help them to move away from comfort zone into places where things are more, let's say, artistically riskier. So to be able to observe someone in that situation, it can help you a lot to decide whether the person fits what you're looking for. And the way people deal with being outside of their comfort zone also is very revealing. So, to meet someone who possesses a wide range of skills and are able to produce from a wide range of possibilities can be very powerful for a choreographer or someone who casts now a production or a project. And you can, for someone like that, it can be like, wow, there's so many options. And having this idea of, wow, so many options opens doors in your mind. When you see someone that you think, oh, it could work, but in those specific circumstances, and you feel like or choosing to work with a certain dancer already makes you commit, because you feel like, perhaps it wouldn't really work on some situations, and other situations would work better. So I have to stick, if I'm taking and working with this dancer, I have to stick with the situations that I feel like his abilities and qualities would work in. And it feels like it narrows your path a little bit towards where you're going. So I think it's really great to be able to portray different qualities and give the person in front of you the feeling that you're adaptable, that you can actually fit into a wide variety of situations, and that you open a wide variety of options, creative options for them and creative paths for them to go.
Do you also have a turn off in audition when you see a dancer and it turns you off?
Sometimes it can happen. I don't think it's acute. It's more like, oh, there's certain things and certain habits that you see. It's hard for me to find something that is an absolute turn off, but let's say when you see a dancer and their presence is kind of locked into either one of the two extreme of being completely internal in themselves, almost in a bubble. This looks also very sheltered, very protective. Doesn't really allow you to see them. I think there is something so important to not just allow people to view you, but to be able to enjoy it. It's not so easy.
Very hard.
Time feels like it deviates from what you want to do as a dancer. You don't want to, it's not about to enjoy when people are looking at, but also if you enjoy dancing, it's enough just not to mind. I don't mind that people watch me because I enjoy what I do, and I'm passionate about it. And that could be a nice mindset to allow others to actually view you, and that your decision-making process is not coming from that. So instead of being with your eyes out and allowing them to see your eyes, which is so important, you are looking where you can hide your eyes and looking for those ways of protecting yourself. Then again, it's hard to connect to someone where you cannot see the eyes, and often we don't want to show the eyes because it puts us again in a very vulnerable place. But again, to become comfortable in your vulnerability is so important. On the other side of the spectrum, you would see people sometimes all the time looking forward, front, into the jury, or into what in their habit is the area of where the mirror is. So they're looking and they're kind of in this place where their awareness of the outside eye is so accentuated, is so present. It's also taking over the decision-making process, and so many decisions are being taken from that point of view. And so I think it's hard to balance between the two, but it's important to find the middle ground where you are there, you are prioritizing your experience, but you allow other people to watch you, and you don't feel like your decisions are dependent on anyone's reaction. You don't need to look out to see how people respond to your decisions, but you can look and be inspired by other people, hopefully, that are around you. So yeah, these are not, again, acute turn-offs. They're more like they obstruct the ability to view someone's abilities and talent because they take over their decisions. And instead of deciding from a place of being connected to the present moment and connected to the proposition of people around them and connected to the information, they're kind of taking decisions from either a very self-protective place or a very much a place of wanting to cater to something else, someone else. And there's only, you can't really predict what someone wants when they sit in front of you, and therefore you shouldn't really dwell with it too much, I think, because it doesn't necessarily going to help you thinking constantly, oh, what do those people want from me as a dancer? What what sides of me should I highlight in order to cater to their preferences? So yeah, I think focusing on the present moment, on the tasks you have to do, and on enjoying them. I would start with enjoying. Focus on enjoying. I think it's the most overlooked aspect of almost everything that we do in the dance world, from auditions to rehearsals to performances. It's all so much joy and fun dependent. And I think the reason is especially because this aspect is something that transfers without words, without trying or not trying to show it or hiding it. If you are suffering, it's very evident. If you're connecting to your passion to move and your joy and what is actually activating you inside of this thing that you are doing, I think it's also very much transcending to the person in front of you without having to say anything. So if you can take care of that and make it that you enjoy what you do, it's already a very solid base that on top of it so many things could be layered on, but it's the base. It's the first thing. So when you prepare yourself for an audition, for example, I think it's important to visualize and simulate and try to think about this practice. How can I make it fun to myself, joyous? How can I bring in all the stuff that I like about dancing into this stressful environment when I'm competing with other people and stuff? Even just from the perspective of, if I focus on that, it can draw my attention from focusing on all those things that doesn't help me, like the competition, the stress, the expectations that I extrapolate from imagination of what people would want to see from me. All those things that are endless and not really helping could be replaced with more basic things, like enjoying to be in the moment, enjoying this craft that you like so much. You like it so much that you want to share it with other people, and you want this work frame that is a project or a company to be the frame that you share it within, and you think that you might be able to contribute to it. And also, as you actually mentioned in previous conversations that I saw that you had with other artists, it's a chance for you too to see if you're into what these people are doing, this choreographer, what they're doing. Are you actually into it? It's not to come with an attitude of I don't know if I like you. You first prove it to me. No. It's more like, it's like a blind date. Let's get to know each other. I'm checking your things as well. I'm not here to derive immediate conclusions. I'm here to experience, and then I'll take it home with me, and then I'll think deep and good about what I liked and what I didn't, and whether I feel like it is a good fit for me as a dancer. This is why I would never, as a choreographer or as someone who would maybe audition people, reach out for people to work with me, I would never reach out or sit with them after audition immediately and offer them a contract immediately. I could propose, and I would like the other person also to go and think about it and think whether it's a good fit for them. Think about the commitment that they're going to make if we're going to work together, and so that the decision is not impulsive and coming from the need to score a contract and get the job, and it's more coming from a place of understanding the bigger picture of it.
I think you said it so beautifully, and I'm going a bit back to you spoke about enjoying, and I also think this is the most important thing. And it's something that is radiating. Like when you see someone dance and they enjoy doing it, you also enjoy watching them. Whether you connect to the way they're moving or not, it doesn't matter. It drives something inside of you. It's like when you see someone smile, you immediately smile. It's
Yes.
kind of contagious, human being basic psychology. We want to connect even when we don't know that we want to connect with that person, but we want community.
And we also are in a constant practice of identifying. We always identify. We look at things around us and we identify them. We identify patterns visually or behavior wise. We identify things like recognizing them, giving them a name, and running them through the library of experiences that we ourselves have. And when we come to watch a show or audition or whatever we are watching, we are out there to identify, to see how what we see resonates with our own experiences. And if we see someone having a good time, enjoying themselves, connecting to their own joy, of course it transcends, because we are open to identify that. And if you see it as a solid layer, as something that is in practice with that person constantly throughout your mutual experience in that moment, it gives you a very strong sense of confidence in that person. You feel like they're enjoying this situation, which is very stressful and not easy. It means that in a more normal situation like a rehearsal, it would be even more easier for them to enjoy a performance as well, easier for them to go through and enjoy that. It's very telling of a person. If a person is gravitating towards the difficulty, the challenges, and they're wrapped up around these things, and also it can become the color that you see. It can become, you identify with other elements, with fear, with concern, with how they deal with expectations, real or not. But you see those things, and not always there are the things that you would want to see in the front. They always exist, but again, it's a choice where we place our attention. And I think it's so important to become independent and active in how you manage your attention, where you put it. That's, for me, the entire psychological game that you have to do as a performance artist. This kind of internal work that you need to do to understand how to move your attention, to release the grip of attention over things that don't serve you, and to mobilize your attention and shift it towards the things that actually matter, the things that would influence your performance, would influence your experience in the moment, the things that will help you to stay in the present moment rather than extrapolating on the future or too much considering the past and what happened and dragging it behind you. Staying fresh in the moment. It's such a beautiful state of, so many things can happen, so many nice things can happen from staying in the moment, and the practice of staying in the moment is, it's easy to say, oh, stay in the moment, but this is the end result. It's not necessarily the work you need to do in order to arrive there. So the work that you need to do to arrive there has so much to do with how you move and shift your attention from something to another thing. A lot of us, I feel, are working through life, and the attention is not a choice. It's, oh, my shoulder is in so much pain, so my attention is going all into my shoulder, or I see something and my attention is going there, and something draws my attention or takes my attention, and I'm allowing my attention to be taken. And how often do we actually feel like, no, we have an agency over our attention, we're moving our attention from things that we feel not serving us to things that we feel that do serve us and feeding us and giving us something useful. It connects to what I said before about having to be independent in your own learning process, looking out, looking at the people, identifying, moving your attention until you see something that you identify, something that you like, and something that you would want to learn and find, and dwelling your attention there and observing it and looking for the fine detail. And maybe following up with conversation with a person and asking them about it, or conversation with another person. Did you notice that this person does that when they dance, and what do you think, how do they do that, or whatever, like making it not only internally but also a spoken conversation with someone can also help you to develop your thoughts about it.
I couldn't agree more with everything that you said here. I think you summed it up so amazingly. Like, it connects me to the starting point that you talked about, observation. And we always want to be in observation of what is around us, but also of what is inside of us. Where are our thoughts, and understanding that we have more power than we think sometimes, because we can let life just take us like the wind, shift us to different places, but we can also decide that I can gain control of the situation and actually make a choice by changing the way I see, by changing the way I think about it. So to tie up our conversation today, is there anything that you would like to say, like a message to dancers that listen to this podcast? Maybe they are in the beginning of their career, still navigating themselves into the dance world.
I have to think about that. I do want to say something that I used with myself in relation to what we just spoken to. It's a sort of analogy or an image that helps me to tie everything together. And it has to do with the idea of a wave. When you're in the ocean and a wave comes to you, you can either let the wave take you and you're just being taken and being, rolling inside the wave, and sometimes it's struggling, sometimes it's not so easy. Sometimes you can duck under the wave and wait for it to pass, and sometimes you can swim away from the wave and ride it in the right time when it arrives to you, sort of riding on top of it, using this momentum, this external thing that is coming to you, and you can produce a lot of enjoyment from that, because that could be fun, it could be invigorating and connect you to the joy when you're really riding it. And I think it's nice to with your own energy management to feel what you want to do, because riding is a lot of fun, but also takes a lot of energy. Sometimes you need to balance between going for it and riding to going a little bit under and avoiding it. And it takes me to another image that I also like a lot, that has to do with how passive or active you are, because often it's nice to be taken from place to place, to being pulled towards something by an external force. But it's even more exciting sometimes to be on top of it and to take yourself there, to be sort of riding the elephant rather than be dragging behind it towards different things. Sort of like understanding that thing that you can have, and trying to understand how can you use it for your own benefit and enjoyment. And sometimes it's an elephant, but sometimes it's a project or a company, and the image still persists in this way that in these frames you could be dragged from task to task, performance to event to another thing, and you feel like, oh, everything is a chore, everything is something that you need to attend, and it has to do with your responsibilities and has to do with your commitment, and it takes away from your energy. But also there is a way for you to feel more like you're on top of it. You're riding. I mean, you wanted to be in this framework. You wanted to enjoy being with the elephants, and maybe there's no other way to enjoy it other than to ride it, to really take full advantage of it, and rather than being dragged from thing to thing, to feel like you are the main benefit of it. You're fulfilling yourself to the maximum extent. And yeah, I think it's nice. Maybe it's a nice way to end it, with finding a active stance in your experience that usually helps so much more to make it your own, to make your experience unique and personal and fitted to your own measurements and size. Not to wait for someone to fit it on you, to be like, I'm going to wear this suit, I'm going to make it fit, I'm going to make it me. Yeah.
Beautiful. Guy, thank you so much for having this conversation. I think it was so meaningful and super interesting also for me, and I'm sure that for everyone that listened to this today. And guys, if you're listening to this and you feel like there's someone that has to hear what we talked about here, please send it to them. Be good, be kind, and subscribe to this podcast, like it, share it, help us spread the word of making the dance world a better place. Thank you for being here today, and I'll see you in the next episode. Ciao, ciao, everyone.